Runes was the standard English writing system before our modern alphabet was invented. I was first introduced to runes by this video, by Robword explaining why we should go back to writing in runes. And in this video, he gave a very funny anecdote.
It was found in the ruins of a tavern, and it says, Geetha says, you should go home. What I find extra funny is that there is an accompanying inscription that is completely incomprehensible. It would appear that they were so far gone that they couldn't inscribe a decent reply.
And I thought, wow, that's hilarious. I should go make a video about that. That would get a lot of views, wouldn't it? Do you think that would get a lot of views? So I went online to find a credible source that I could cite, but not a single website had anything about it. Huh, I thought, that's strange. So I went back to Rob Word's video and checked his sources. And indeed, he had included a database of every single runic text ever discovered in Scandinavia. If Geetha Says You Should Go Home existed, it would be in there. But back to the plot of this video, you've seen the title, so you probably know where this is going. Each and every single runic text has a individual signature that you can type in and you can find the exact thing you want. And I'm sure Rob has included the exact signature in his video to allow, that's how you properly cite sources, so that I could quickly find it easily and find a credible source for my video. But turns out he hadn't, because he forgot, I guess. So now I had two options. Forget about this and move on with my life. Or option two, read every single runic text ever discovered in Scandinavia until I found the one I was looking for. All 6,900 of them. And you can bet your bottom dollar you know darn well which one I chose. Okay, that far was not planned, it was off the cuff. Now this was a time where I was mainly making small videos, not big videos, so I had a lot more free time on my hands. So after school, I'd come back for like 2-3 nights in a row, and I'd scroll through all the runic texts, okay? And I got about this far down. Now I knew deep down in my soul it was going to be right at the end, because why shouldn't it be? But I started from the start anyway, because I apparently love going through each and every one of them. I know now, because I've gone through the entire thing, that the thing was always going to have an N at the beginning of it, because lots of things were found in the exact same discovery, and everything found in that discovery began with an N. But I didn't know that at the time, so I was going through every single one, and let me tell you, it was the most boring thing ever. Like, there were so many of the most ridiculous things ever. For example, it was just a full stop that translated into a full stop. What? How do you know that's even a text, okay? That could just be a dent in a piece of wood. Then it was just a set of 3 full stops sometimes. Now I know that 3 full stops mean that it's unintelligible, but I didn't know that at the time, so I wondered why all the Vikings were just writing 3 full stops. And then, like, a good 50% of the things I looked at were just, I planted this memory in favour of my dead sister. I planted this stone in favour of my grandma. Now listen, I understand, okay, that stones survive the test of time a lot better than wood, but oh my... And once again, I'm so glad this archive exists. But it is just so boring reading through 100 of I planted this stone in favour of my grandma in a row. Like, I swear to God, if I have one more person tell me I planted this stone in memory of my 5th gerbil twice removed, I'm gonna lose my mind. There is a bright side though. At the end of this, I would become a solid expert on Viking linguistics. I'm not sure why I'll ever need to be an expert on Viking linguistics, but if that skill ever comes up in my life, that would be very useful, so thanks. On Viking linguists. There were a couple of famous ones in there. For example, if you Google craziest Viking texts ever found, one of the first ones that comes up is always this one. So there were lots of things that had multiple different sides and or variants, and or reading variants, and if there's 2 things, then it's most likely a side. For example, this one has spoon on one side and unintelligible on the other side. But I don't know many things that have 3 sides that you can write on. Most things that you can write on only have 2 sides. So I presume this is multiple different ways it can be interpreted. This one was just blank. Like, this was a real nothing burger of a statement here. There was literal nothing here. And there were quite a few blank ones, but this is the only one I managed to screenshot. Ale came up there a couple of times. I presume they were all from the same dig. You can check the location these were found, and while I didn't bother checking the location on the ale one, I presume it was found inside of a pub. God came up there a couple of times, which makes sense. This one was just the entire alphabet. Kiss me. That was one of the things. I wasn't asking anybody to kiss me. There were a bunch of them that started an amazing plotline, hooked me in, I'm like, oh, what's gonna happen next? This is the best story since Harry Potter, I'm like. And then it just faded off into the distance and never continued the story. Like, for example, a blind man carved this to you. Nice. But then it's like, Bolfrosso sees me, and another one was Now is a Great Uproar, and I'm like, oh, what an amazing story that has just started. Now is a Great Uproar? What great uproar? What great uproar are you saying? Are our evil tyrant oppressors about to be overthrown? Has the revolution begun? What great uproar are you talking about? Well, you're never going to find out, because the rest of it's unintelligible, because this text just didn't survive the test of time. God damn it. Now I need somebody to neuralize that entire story out of my brain. But because I wish it's now so painful not knowing how the story ends. No! And then there was this just confusing one here, like I'll show you. May the belt from Fano increase your booty. Okay, so when you say belt, what, like, belt as in belt in the stars, like a belt of stars, a belt of rocks, a belt around your waist? Are you hitting somebody with a belt? I cannot interpret what this means. Oh, and the C word came up quite a couple of times. I presume the C word meant something less offensive at the time. Like, for example, in this sentence, the C word seems to be like like somebody's last name. Like, for reference, that would be equivalent if the common last name Smith meant something really, really offensive in like 1,000 years. And then a 31st century equivalent of me would look back and say, oh, the S word came up there a couple of times. I don't want to criticize Robword here a second. This isn't like a damning condemnation or anything, but you know, can you please, like, tell me what the signature is? Like, if you notice what I've been doing, when I crop these images, I'm making sure to leave the signatures in so you can quickly fact check me on these, because that's what proper citation looks like. And the fact that Rob even cited his sources, he means he's doing better than, like, 90% of YouTubers, frankly. But please, Rob, if you end up watching this, can you, like, update the description, please? To, like, cite the exact signature, because all you have to do is type it in or press Ctrl F or something. So I got about this far down, but then I got a sudden hit of motivation to start working on a video about Bulgaria. So I made videos about Bulgaria, France, and then Spain. Then I forgot all about this project of mine until about, 2 nights ago now, when I suddenly got a sudden hit of motivation to do this again. I was very busy, but I found time in my schedule somewhere. Problem is, I couldn't quite remember where I left off, and even though I knew it was going to be right at the end, because, you know, that's just my luck, I still didn't want to, like, accidentally overshoot it here. So I started at the other end and decided to work my way upwards, and would you believe it, it was here. Here! Well, thank goodness I forgot. Thank goodness for my irresponsibility and forgetfulness for forgetting where I was. It massively cut down the time where it took me to find it. So I can't claim to have read 6,900 runes texts, but I can claim to have read 800 of them. Roughly 800 of them. Like, I don't know the exact number, but I swear to God I'm not going to count them. I was so happy when I found the Gertha says you should go home thing. I actually stood up and wrote it on my whiteboard. But in all seriousness, despite all the effort I've gone, I'm probably not going to make a video about this, considering the fact, well, it probably isn't true. Like, the evidence was, it was found in the ruins of a tavern, and it's got the phrase, Gertha says you should go home on one side, and then something unintelligible on the other side. I think it's making a quite logical leap to conclude that entire story based on just this evidence, okay?
It would appear that they were so far gone that they couldn't inscribe a decent reply.
Supposedly, when the Vikings invaded Britain, they were the first people ever to be sarcastic, and now sarcasm is a big part of British culture. Now, as somebody who's read a good chunk of all the runic texts ever written, I not only couldn't find any sarcasm, most of them were too short to know if they were being sarcastic or know the context at all. So I'll take their word for it, but if anybody does know anything about this, I will like to ask you, like, how do we know that the Vikings were the first people to be sarcastic? I would also like to point out that if you were telling your friend, you're so drunk, get out from the pub, you wouldn't write it on a stick to them and leave it there for them to reply. You would tell them, go home from the pub, buddy. I think, at best, if we are, you know, giving a lot of generosity to this story, I think the most likely thing is that, remember how I mentioned that Vikings were apparently sarcastic? Well, I think then some sarcastic Vikings who liked ironic humour probably wrote down, Gertha says you should go home, as a joke. And then we found out and took their joke seriously, but I'm just, once again, guessing it. We don't know. So if someone in the comments can convince me that we do have evidence that, no, this is real, then I might make a video about this, but I'm probably not going to bother.